Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The thought of her dream seemed impossible to reach, but she couldn't let go of the idea. She had worked so hard for so long, and the idea of giving up no matter how bleak her reality seemed was not an option. Her eyes landed on a sharply dressed man sitting alone at the back of the room. He had dark, neatly styled hair and was engrossed in his phone. She froze for a moment, her heart pounding. This had to be him. She took a deep breath and walked toward the table, trying to appear confident despite the butterflies in her stomach. Kevin chuckled softly, his expression lightening. "You're easy to talk to, Sarah," he said, his voice warm. Her face burned with embarrassment as she jumped up quickly, grabbing her purse. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, practically running out the door, her heart racing. For the first time in a long while, he found himself wondering why that simple encounter had affected him so deeply. Stay tuned as Sarah's world turns upside down, and unexpected secrets are revealed. Subscribe and stay with us to see how this tale unfolds. After running out of the restaurant, Sarah felt her heart race in her chest, a deep flush creeping up her neck. She couldn't believe she had made such a ridiculous mistake. As she hurried down the street, the cool night air stung her cheeks, but it didn't matter. Her mind was still reeling from the awkwardness. "What was I thinking?" she thought. "How could I mess up something so simple?" She turned the corner, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She fumbled to pull it out, still embarrassed from the incident. It was a message from Jenny, "Are you okay?" Sarah stopped walking, took a deep breath, and typed back, "I can't believe I just did that. I thought he was Kevin. It was so embarrassing. I'm walking home now." Her thumbs hesitated before sending the message. She had promised Jenny she would go on the date, but it seemed like it was destined to be a disaster. Maybe she just wasn't cut out for this, for love. The thought of it made her heart sink even further. As she continued walking, the sound of her heels clicking on the pavement seemed to echo in her ears, but then she heard something that made her pause, the soft hum of a car engine. She turned to see a sleek black car pull up beside her. The window rolled down, revealing none other than Kevin, the man she had just fled from. He gave her a warm smile, the same one she had seen earlier. "Hey, wait up," he called out. "Oh no. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm really sorry for running out like that," Sarah stammered, her words rushing out in a jumbled mess. She felt her cheeks flush again. Kevin laughed softly, his smile only widening. "It's all right," he said, still chuckling. "It was a misunderstanding, right? You thought I was someone else. It happens." His tone was calm, reassuring, and somehow that made her feel even more embarrassed. But there was something about his kindness, his lack of judgment, that made her feel a bit better about the whole situation. "I really didn't mean to. I just thought," Sarah started, but Kevin cut her off, his voice gentle. "You don't have to explain. You don't owe me anything," he said, leaning back in the seat. "But you did make me laugh. Honestly, you seem like a pretty down-to-earth person. And I think I owe you an apology too. I should have corrected you sooner, but I just kind of went with it." Sarah was silent for a moment, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over her. It was like everything had shifted, like the awkwardness had melted away in the face of his easygoing attitude. It was such a refreshing change, and she couldn't help but smile, despite the circumstances. "I don't want to keep you," Kevin said suddenly, his expression softening. "But, what if we grabbed a coffee? I promise I won't run off this time." She hesitated. Should she? Should she really go out for coffee with a guy she'd just met in the most embarrassing way possible? But then again, why not? She had nothing to lose. Besides, it wasn't every day someone like him, someone so patient and understanding, came into her life. Okay, she finally said, her voice still a little uncertain. But just coffee. I'm not up for anything fancy. Kevin grinned. Deal. The car door opened, and Sarah slid into the passenger seat, still trying to make sense of everything that had happened. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so comfortable with someone she had just met. Maybe it was the fact that he wasn't judging her for the mess up. Maybe it was his smile. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the little spark of something that had started to form between them, something unexpected. As the car pulled away, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and confusion. She didn't know what this meant, what this whole situation was turning into. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. They drove through the quiet streets, the soft glow of streetlights reflecting off the car windows, and Sarah found herself talking more freely than she had in a long time. She told Kevin about her work at the cafe, about her dreams of becoming an artist, and the struggles she had faced over the years. Kevin listened intently, asking questions here and there, genuinely interested in what she had to say. By the time they arrived at a small, cozy coffee shop a few blocks away, Sarah felt like she had known him for much longer than just a few minutes. They stepped out of the car together, and as they entered the shop, the warm, earthy smell of coffee beans surrounded them. It was a place that felt comfortable, laid back, perfect for two people who had just experienced an awkward start but who now shared something unspoken. They sat down at a small table in the corner, and as Kevin poured the coffee, Sarah couldn't help but feel a little amazed by how everything had turned out. Maybe this night wasn't so bad after all. Kevin looked at her, a soft smile on his face. So, what's the real reason you ran out of the restaurant earlier? He asked playfully. Sarah hesitated for a second, then laughed. Honestly, I think I was just embarrassed. It was my first blind date, and it was a disaster. I wasn't ready for any of it. Kevin's smile widened, and he leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. You know, I think sometimes we're not ready for things until we're actually in them. You might be surprised at what comes next. Sarah smiled back, unsure of where this was going but feeling a small spark of hope flicker inside her. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. Maybe, just maybe, tonight could be the start of something real. The night had settled into a comfortable quiet as Sarah and Kevin sat across from each other in the cozy corner of the coffee shop. The faint hum of the machines and the occasional clink of ceramic mugs filled the air, but there was an odd stillness between them, a calm that neither had expected after the awkward beginning to their evening. Sarah stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, her fingers tracing the rim of the cup, unsure of what to say next. Kevin, for his part, had settled into an easy silence, but his eyes occasionally flicked to hers, as if waiting for something. So, Kevin began, his voice warm, you really want to open your own art studio? He asked it lightly, but there was a sincerity in his tone that made Sarah pause, looking up from her cup. Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the question. It wasn't the usual small talk. Yeah, I've always wanted to, she said, her voice softer now, more reflective. I've been drawing since I was little. But it's tough, you know? I can barely make rent, let alone save up to rent a space for a gallery. It feels like a dream I'll never get to chase. Kevin leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. I get it, he said slowly. But sometimes, it's the dreams that keep us going, even when things seem impossible. You just have to keep pushing, even when you don't know how you're going to get there. Sarah met his gaze, feeling something stir inside her. There was a quiet strength in his words, but more than that, there was something in the way he looked at her, like he saw her, really saw her. Not just the waitress trying to make ends meet, but someone with real potential. You know, Kevin continued, his voice a little lighter now, I didn't get to where I am by playing it safe. I took risks. I failed. A lot. But I kept going. If you really want something, sometimes it takes a little leap of faith. Sarah chuckled softly, shaking her head. Yeah, well, it's easy to say that when you're, well, you, she said with a little smile, gesturing at his neatly pressed suit and the confidence that seemed to radiate off of him. Kevin smiled back, a little sheepish. "Fair point," he said, then took a sip of his coffee. There was a moment of silence between them, and Sarah felt the weight of his words lingering in the air. It was in that silence that Sarah realized something she hadn't noticed before. She felt comfortable with him. Not the kind of comfort that comes from routine or familiarity, but something different, something more genuine. It was like the walls she had built around herself were slowly starting to come down, piece by piece. But then, as quickly as the thought came, a small voice in her head reminded her of the reality of her situation. Kevin was a successful businessman. He didn't need her, and she didn't belong in his world. She wasn't even supposed to be sitting here with him in the first place. This was all just an accident, a misunderstanding that had led to this unexpected moment. The familiar weight of doubt settled in her chest, and she tried to shake it off, forcing a smile as she took another sip of her coffee. "Well, maybe one day. I'll just have to keep trying." Kevin studied her for a moment, his eyes softening. "You'll get there," he said simply, like he truly believed it. "You just need someone to give you a push." Sarah raised an eyebrow at him, a little surprised by his conviction. "A push?" she asked, a bit skeptically. "And what would that push be, exactly?" Kevin hesitated for a moment, his eyes flickering to the side, before looking back at her. "What if I could help you?" he asked, his voice low but steady. "Help me?" Sarah repeated, unsure if she had heard him right. She set her coffee cup down and leaned forward slightly. "What do you mean by that?" Kevin seemed to take a deep breath before speaking. "I know a lot of people in the art world. I could help you make some connections. Introduce you to people who can help you get your gallery off the ground. I believe in your potential, Sarah. You have something special." For a moment, Sarah was speechless. The words hung in the air, and her mind raced to process what he had just said. Could this really be happening? Could this man, someone she had just met, actually be offering to help her realize her dream? Kevin watched her closely, waiting for her response, but Sarah's mind was still spinning. Don't even know what to say," she finally managed. This is crazy." Kevin's smile softened, his eyes kind. "It's not crazy. You just need someone to believe in you, and I do." Sarah stared at him, feeling the weight of his words sink in. She had never been given an opportunity like this before, someone offering to help her without expecting anything in return. It felt too good to be true. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the sincerity there. She saw someone who wasn't just giving her empty promises, but someone who actually cared. Maybe she had been wrong to doubt. Maybe she didn't have to do everything alone. "Okay," she said finally, her voice quieter than before. "Okay, I'll take the help. I don't know where this will go, but I'll take the help." Kevin's smile widened, and Sarah felt a little flutter in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real, something more than she had ever expected. As the night carried on, and the two of them continued to talk, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting, this unexpected twist of fate, had set something in motion. Maybe her dreams weren't as impossible as she had once thought. The next few days were a blur for Sarah. She couldn't stop thinking about what Kevin had said. He had offered her a chance, a real opportunity to finally chase her dream of opening an art gallery. It felt surreal, like she was living in a dream. A part of her still couldn't believe someone like him, a successful businessman, someone who had everything, would care enough to help someone like her, a waitress barely scraping by. But as the days passed, the reality of it began to settle in. She started reaching out to the contacts Kevin had given her, people who were willing to help her with the gallery. The excitement she felt was contagious, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like there was a possibility, a real chance, to make her dream come true. It was a Thursday afternoon when Sarah finally got her first big break. She was sitting at the cafe, scribbling down ideas for her art gallery's theme when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Kevin. "I've set up a meeting with a curator at the city's top gallery. She's interested in your work. Be ready at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She immediately texted Jenny, her best friend, telling her the news. Jenny responded almost immediately, filled with excitement and disbelief. I knew it. I knew Kevin would help. This is your chance, Sarah. You've got this. The next morning, Sarah was up before dawn. She couldn't sleep. Her nerves were on edge as she prepared for the meeting. She wore her best dress, one she had saved for special occasions, and tried to calm her racing thoughts. This is your shot, Sarah. Don't mess it up, she whispered to herself as she checked her reflection one last time. When she arrived at the gallery, she was greeted by Kevin's assistant, who escorted her to the office where the curator, a well-dressed woman in her early 40s, was waiting. The curator, named Claudia, had an air of sophistication about her that made Sarah feel a little out of place. But she quickly pushed that feeling aside. This was her chance. Claudia stood as Sarah entered the room, her gaze flicking over her briefly before she extended a hand. Sarah, I've heard wonderful things about you. Kevin speaks highly of your work, she said with a warm smile. Let's see what you've got. For the next hour, Sarah showed Claudia some of her sketches, describing her vision for the gallery. She could feel her confidence growing with every word. Claudia listened intently, nodding occasionally, and asking thoughtful questions about the inspiration behind her art. At the end of the meeting, Claudia stood up, offering her hand once again. I like what I see, Sarah, she said. I believe we can make something beautiful together. Let's get started. Sarah couldn't believe it. She had just secured her first major step toward opening her own gallery. She had done it. Her dream was becoming a reality. Later that afternoon, Sarah sat in a quiet park, still processing everything. She had a new sense of purpose, a renewed feeling of excitement and possibility. She couldn't wait to share the news with Kevin. But as she pulled out her phone to text him, she hesitated. For the first time since meeting Kevin, Sarah realized something. He had changed her life not just by helping her with her art, but by showing her kindness when she had nothing. He had believed in her, even when she hadn't believed in herself. As she hit send on the message, her phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Kevin. She answered quickly, her heart beating a little faster than usual. Hey, Sarah, Kevin's voice came through, warm and familiar. I just wanted to check in and see how things went with Claudia. Sarah smiled to herself, her excitement bubbling up. It went amazing, Kevin. She loves my work. She wants to help me get started. This is really happening. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line, and then Kevin's voice softened. I'm really proud of you, Sarah. You deserve this. You've worked hard for it. Sarah's chest tightened, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. She had never expected to hear him say that, especially not after everything. It was just a simple statement, but it meant the world to her. It wasn't about the money, or the gallery, or the connections. Kevin had given her something far more valuable: belief. Thank you, she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. You don't know what this means to me. I'll make sure this is everything you've helped me achieve. Kevin chuckled softly. I have no doubt you will. I'm here for you, Sarah, every step of the way. They ended the call, but Sarah sat there for a while, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She wasn't alone anymore. She had support. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the park, Sarah realized something important: the road ahead would be challenging, but it would also be filled with possibilities. And with someone like Kevin by her side, she felt like she could face anything. Days passed quickly after that pivotal meeting, and Sarah found herself caught in a whirlwind of excitement and anxiety. Every time she walked into her tiny apartment, her mind raced with possibilities. She had a meeting scheduled with a contractor for the gallery's space, and Claudia had already set up introductions with several influential people in the art world. Everything was falling into place, but the weight of it all was beginning to feel heavy. Sarah took a deep breath as she looked at the sketches she had been working on. This was happening. She was finally going to have her own gallery. But there was a small voice in the back of her mind that wouldn't quiet down. Was she really ready for this? Her phone buzzed on the counter, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Kevin. "I know things are moving fast, but how are you feeling about everything? Just wanted to check in. Let me know if you need anything." She smiled at the text, grateful for the reminder that she wasn't doing this alone. It was more than just business now. Kevin had become a constant presence in her life, offering support and encouragement every step of the way. He believed in her when she had doubts, and his belief had become her foundation. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she considered her reply. How should I tell him? She had so much to say, but everything felt so overwhelming. Finally, she typed, "I'm excited, Kevin, but also a little scared. This is all so new, and I don't want to mess it up." She paused before hitting send, then added, "But I'm going to give it my all. I promise." She hit send and put the phone down, her heart racing. A moment later, it buzzed again. This time, Kevin's reply was almost immediate. "You won't mess it up. I know you won't. Just keep being you. You've got this." His words gave her the reassurance she needed. She felt a little lighter, as though the weight of her worries had been lifted, just for a moment. But there was something more in his message. The kindness, the belief in her. It was more than just support. It felt like something deeper, something unspoken. The next day, Sarah met with the contractor, and the space for the gallery started to take shape in her mind. It wasn't just an empty room anymore. It was the start of her future, a future she had never been able to imagine before. She could already picture the walls covered in vibrant art, her pieces displayed proudly for the world to see. Later that evening, she walked to a nearby park to clear her head. The city was quiet, the noise of the day fading into the background as she sat on a bench. The cool evening air was a welcome relief, and she closed her eyes, allowing herself to just breathe for a moment. As she sat there, lost in thought, her phone buzzed again. She glanced down, surprised to see it was a call from Kevin. She had never expected him to reach out like this, but a part of her felt a flutter of excitement at hearing his voice. "Hey, Sarah," Kevin's voice came through warmly, pulling her from her thoughts. "I just wanted to hear how everything's going. I know it's a lot to handle, but I'm here if you need anything." She smiled, feeling her nerves settle a little. "It's going well," she replied, her voice steady. "The contractor is great, and the space is perfect. It's all starting to feel real." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Kevin spoke again, his tone a little softer. "I'm really proud of you, Sarah. You've worked so hard for this, and you're making it happen. I know this is only the beginning, but you're already on the path to something incredible." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Proud of me? She wasn't used to hearing words like that, especially from someone like Kevin. He was a successful, powerful man, someone who didn't have to take the time to reassure her. But he did. "Thanks, Kevin," she said quietly, her voice full of emotion. "You don't know how much this means to me." Kevin chuckled softly, a warm sound that made her feel even more at ease. "I think I do, Sarah. Just remember, you're not doing this alone." They ended the call a few minutes later, and Sarah sat back on the bench, staring at the sky above. The stars seemed brighter tonight, almost as if the universe was giving her a sign. She wasn't sure what it was, but she felt a spark of hope, a deep sense of gratitude. She had come so far in such a short amount of time, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like everything was within her reach. As she stood up and began walking home, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about the gallery anymore. It wasn't just about business or dreams. It was about something deeper, something that had begun with a simple conversation over coffee. Kevin had been there when she needed someone to believe in her. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe in something else too. As the city lights flickered ahead of her, Sarah realized that the future was wide open. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face it, no matter what came next. The following weeks were a blur of excitement, nerves, and hard work for Sarah. The gallery was beginning to take shape, both physically and emotionally. She had a team of workers renovating the space, and Claudia had introduced her to several influential people in the art world who were excited to see her work. The connections were flowing in, and Sarah was slowly starting to feel like she belonged in this world. But with all the progress, there was one thing that kept nagging at her: Kevin. She couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. He had become a constant presence in her life, someone who supported her, believed in her, and cared for her in ways she hadn't expected. She had tried to keep her emotions in check, focusing on the gallery, her dreams, but there was always this lingering thought. Was she feeling something for him? Was it more than just gratitude for all he had done for her? She couldn't help but wonder if it was the right time for her to think about anything other than the gallery, but every time she saw him, every time they spoke, her heart seemed to race a little faster. It was a rainy Thursday evening when Sarah met Kevin again. They had arranged to have dinner to discuss the final details of her gallery's grand opening. As she walked into the upscale restaurant, she felt a flutter of nerves, not because of the business talk, but because of Kevin. She had dressed carefully, nothing too fancy, but just enough to feel confident. She spotted him at a table near the window, his back straight and his eyes scanning a piece of paper. When he looked up and saw her, his face softened into a smile, and the tension in Sarah's chest melted away. "You look great," Kevin said, standing up as she approached. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest at his kind words. "Thank you," Sarah replied, sitting down across from him. "I'm excited about tonight. We're really close to the grand opening." Kevin nodded, his expression serious but supportive. "You've come a long way, Sarah. I'm proud of you." His words meant more to her than she could express. She had never expected to hear those words from him, especially considering how much he had already helped her. He had been there for her from the beginning, believing in her when she hadn't believed in herself. They ordered their food, and the conversation naturally turned to the final touches for the gallery. They discussed the guest list, the art pieces that would be featured, and the timing of the event. But as the night wore on, Sarah's mind kept drifting back to something Kevin had said earlier. "You know, I've been thinking," she said, taking a sip of her wine. "About everything. About how you've helped me with the gallery, with everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." She looked at him, her voice quiet but sincere. Kevin leaned back in his chair, his gaze soft. "I'm happy I could help. You deserved this, Sarah. But you're the one who made it happen. I just gave you the tools to succeed." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. He wasn't just being humbly, genuinely believed in her. And for some reason, that meant more than anything else. She hadn't been sure before, but now she was. There was something more between them. Something real. She could feel it, even if she didn't know how to name it. "I don't know if I've told you this," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly, "but you've made me feel more alive than I have in a long time. You believed in me when no one else did. And she paused, taking a deep breath. "I think I'm starting to feel something for you." Kevin's eyes softened as he listened, his expression unreadable for a moment. But then he reached across the table and took her hand in his. His touch was warm, steady, and it made Sarah's heart race in a way she couldn't quite explain. "I've been feeling the same way," Kevin said quietly, his voice low but clear. "But I didn't want to complicate things. You've got so much on your plate with the gallery, and I didn't want to put any pressure on you. But if I'm being honest, I'm glad you said it." For a long moment, they just sat there, looking at each other, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Sarah's mind was spinning. She had spent so long focused on her dreams, on making the gallery a reality, that she hadn't allowed herself to think about her feelings. But now, with Kevin holding her hand and his gaze fixed on hers, she realized that sometimes the things you didn't plan for were the most important. Maybe we don't need to figure it all out right now, Sarah said, her voice soft but determined. Maybe we just need to see where this goes. Kevin smiled, the warmth in his eyes matching the way his hand held hers. I agree. We'll take it one step at a time. No pressure. They continued talking throughout the evening, the conversation drifting back to the gallery and their plans for the future. But underneath the business talk, there was something else, an unspoken connection, a bond that was growing stronger with every passing moment. As they finished dinner, Sarah realized that, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't just chasing a dream. She was beginning to live it, and it was better than she could have ever imagined. The following weeks were a whirlwind for Sarah. The grand opening of her gallery was fast approaching, and everything was finally starting to come together. The walls were covered with her artwork, each piece telling a story of struggle, triumph, and everything in between. She had worked so hard for this moment, and now it was almost here. But despite the excitement, there was a lingering tension in the back of her mind. The connection between her and Kevin had deepened, but it had also become complicated. She was afraid that their growing feelings might interfere with everything she had worked so hard to build. It was a few days before the opening, and Sarah sat at her desk in the gallery, looking over the guest list for the event. She hadn't seen Kevin in a couple of days. They had talked on the phone, but there was a distance now, a quiet tension she couldn't shake. He had been supportive as always, but something in his voice made her wonder if he was pulling back. Maybe I'm overthinking it, she told herself. Maybe he's just busy. But a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that the distance between them was something more. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She looked up to see Kevin standing in the doorway, his smile warm but tinged with something Sarah couldn't quite place. He stepped into the gallery, his gaze sweeping over the space, and Sarah felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief because seeing him felt like a weight lifting from her shoulders, but anxiety because she wasn't sure where they stood anymore. Hey, Kevin said softly, his voice gentle. I wanted to stop by and check out the gallery before the big day. It looks incredible, Sarah. You've really outdone yourself. Sarah smiled, but there was a hesitation in her smile, a question in her eyes. Thanks, Kevin. I couldn't have done it without you. She stopped herself, unsure of how to continue. Kevin took a step closer, his eyes meeting hers. I've been thinking a lot about us, Sarah, he said quietly. About what all of this means. You're about to launch something huge. You don't need any distractions right now, and I don't want to be one of those distractions. I care about you. I do. But I know you have big dreams, and I don't want to hold you back. Sarah's heart skipped a beat, her chest tightening at his words. She had known something was off, but hearing it out loud still hit her like a ton of bricks. She had never imagined that Kevin would step back, that he would distance himself because of her dream. Kevin, you're not a distraction, Sarah said, her voice shaking slightly. You've helped me more than anyone. You've been there for me when I needed someone. I don't want to lose that. Kevin looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he reached for her hand, his touch soft but firm. I don't want to lose you either, Sarah. But I need to be honest with you. If I'm going to be a part of your life, I need to know that you're not just doing this for me. I need to know that this is what you truly want, that it's your dream, not just something you think I want you to do. Sarah felt her throat tighten. The words hit her harder than she expected. Was she really doing this for herself, or was it for the people who had helped her get here? She thought about everything she had sacrificed, all the times she had questioned herself. But deep down, she knew. She wasn't doing this for Kevin, or for anyone else. She was doing this for her. This is my dream, Kevin, she whispered, looking into his eyes. I've wanted this for so long. I couldn't have gotten here without you, but it's always been about me. It's always been about what I've wanted. Kevin's face softened, and he nodded slowly. I needed to hear that, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Because you deserve this, Sarah. You deserve everything you're about to achieve. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, no matter what. I just want you to be sure. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her, and for the first time in days, she felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. She had been afraid that she would lose Kevin or that he would stop supporting her. But now, she knew he wasn't going anywhere. And more importantly, she knew that what she was doing wasn't just for him, but for her. The two of them stood there for a moment, hand in hand, their connection stronger than ever. It was in that moment that Sarah realized that, no matter what came next, she was ready. Ready to take on the gallery, ready to chase her dreams, and ready to let Kevin be a part of it all, without fear or doubt. Thank you, Sarah said quietly, squeezing his hand. For everything, and for believing in me. Kevin smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. You've got this, Sarah. And I'll be right here, cheering you on. As Sarah watched him leave the gallery, she knew that her future was finally in her hands. And this time, she was ready to embrace it completely. The day of the grand opening arrived sooner than Sarah expected. The gallery, once just a dream, was now a reality. Every wall was adorned with her work, and the space was filled with the soft hum of conversation as guests walked around, admiring the art. Sarah stood in the center of the room, a glass of wine in hand, trying to soak it all in. She had worked so hard for this moment, and now it was here, in full swing. The crowd was buzzing with excitement, but there was a quiet moment when Sarah stepped back, just for a second, to appreciate the journey she had been on. She glanced around, taking in the faces of people who had supported her along the way. Claudia, the curator who had helped her find her place in the art world, the contractors who had turned her vision into a reality, and, of course, Kevin. She hadn't seen him yet, but she knew he was here. He had promised to be there for her, and she could feel his presence even before she spotted him in the crowd. As Sarah moved through the gallery, talking to guests, answering questions about her work, she couldn't help but think about the conversation she and Kevin had just a few days ago. It had been a turning point for both of them. The uncertainty, the fear, it had all melted away after they had talked. Sarah had realized that this gallery, this success, was hers. She had built it on her own, with the help of the people who believed in her, but it was her dream. She felt a gentle tap on her shoulder, and when she turned around, there he was, Kevin, standing with that familiar warm smile. He looked just as confident as always, but there was something different in the way he looked at her now. His eyes weren't just proud of her, but full of something deeper. You did it, Kevin said softly, his voice low, but full of admiration. This place is incredible, Sarah. I knew you could do it. Sarah smiled, feeling a rush of emotion. I couldn't have done it without you, she said, her voice thick with gratitude. You were right, Kevin. You were right all along. I needed to believe in myself. Kevin's gaze softened, and he stepped a little closer. And you did. You made it happen. He paused, looking around the room, then back at Sarah. You know, there's something else I've been thinking about. Sarah looked at him, her curiosity piqued. What's that? Kevin hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath before speaking again. I know we've been through a lot, and I know this isn't the time for distractions, but I just wanted to say, you've become so much more than a business partner to me, Sarah. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the emotion behind his words. I think about you, about us, and I know I don't want to go through this life without you in it. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to speak so openly about his feelings, especially tonight, when everything was so focused on the gallery. But she knew, deep down, that she had been feeling the same way. Kevin, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the music and chatter around them. I've been thinking about you too. I never expected this to happen. I never expected to feel this way, but I can't imagine my life without you either. Kevin smiled, a look of relief washing over his face. I'm glad to hear you say that, he said, his voice filled with warmth. Because I'm not going anywhere, Sarah. Not now, not ever. They stood there for a moment, a quiet understanding passing between them. It wasn't just about the gallery anymore. It wasn't just about business or dreams, it was about something real, something they both felt. A future together. As the night continued, Sarah found herself looking at the gallery with a new perspective. This wasn't just her achievement, it was theirs. Kevin had supported her, believed in her, and now, they had something more than just a shared goal. They had a connection that had grown stronger with time, and she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The night ended with laughter, cheers, and promises of future success, but Sarah couldn't help but feel like the real victory wasn't just the gallery, it was the chance to start a new life, with Kevin by her side. Weeks passed, and Sarah's life continued to change in ways she had never imagined. The gallery's opening was a massive success, and her work was being talked about by critics and artists alike. People were drawn to the passion and emotion behind each piece, and Sarah found herself more fulfilled than ever. But despite her success, there was still one thing that felt even more important than the gallery itself: the relationship she had built with Kevin. He had become her partner, not just in business, but in life. He was there through every step of the process, cheering her on, supporting her, and challenging her to believe in herself. The bond they shared had only grown stronger since that first dinner they had together. One evening, after a long day at the gallery, Sarah and Kevin sat on the balcony of her apartment, looking out over the city. The skyline stretched before them, a blend of glowing lights and shadows, a constant reminder of how far Sarah had come. Kevin had been her rock, and now, as they sat together, the future seemed bright, full of endless possibilities. "You know," Sarah said softly, her voice quiet in the stillness of the evening, "I never could have imagined this life, not in a million years. The gallery, the success, but most of all, you." She turned to face him, her eyes filled with emotion. Kevin smiled and reached for her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "I'm glad you took the leap, Sarah. You've worked so hard, and you deserve all of this. You've earned it." He paused, looking out over the city before turning back to her. "But what I've realized is that, beyond all the work, beyond the gallery, it's you that makes everything worth it." Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, feeling the depth of his words settle in. "I don't think I could have done any of this without you, Kevin," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "You believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Kevin squeezed her hand, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "You've always had it in you, Sarah. I just helped you see it. But now, you're the one who's built this, who's made it real. And I'm proud to stand by you." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she gazed at him, the weight of everything they had been through, everything they had built together, settling between them. The air around them felt thick with something unspoken, something deeper than words. It was a connection, a bond that had only grown stronger with time. After a few moments of silence, Kevin stood up, holding out his hand to her. "Come on, let's go inside. I have something I want to show you." Confused but intrigued, Sarah followed him into the apartment, her curiosity piqued. They walked through the living room and into the small hallway that led to a door she had never noticed before. Kevin opened it, revealing a small, private space she hadn't seen yet. It was a studio, filled with canvases, paints, and brushes. A place that looked like it was made for her. "I've been working on this for a while," Kevin said, his voice soft but filled with excitement. "I know how much your art means to you, and I wanted to create a space where you could work, a place where you could focus on what you love." He turned to her, his eyes filled with anticipation. "This is for you, Sarah. For your dreams." Sarah stood in the doorway, stunned. She had never expected something like this, never imagined that Kevin would go so far to support her in this way. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. "Kevin, I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. This is everything." Kevin stepped forward, gently cupping her face in his hands. "You don't have to say anything, Sarah. I just wanted you to know that I'm here for you, for your art, for everything you want to do. I believe in you. And I always will." In that moment, Sarah realized that everything she had wanted, the gallery, the success, the future, had come together in the most unexpected way. But what made it truly special was the love and support she had found in Kevin. Together, they had created something beautiful. Together, they had built a future. As they stood in the studio, hand in hand, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges, of course, but with Kevin by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The future was hers to create, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly free. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you for everything, Kevin." Kevin smiled, pulling her close. "This is just the beginning, Sarah. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." And in that moment, Sarah knew that no matter where life took them, they would always have each other, and that was all she needed to keep dreaming.